All right, so now we're going to look at the Cori cycle, right? So if you remember before when we talked about the anaerobic respiration, so this is a phenomenon where there's a lack of oxygen, and so the body is not able to utilize this pyruvate that is generated into the mitochondria because of the lack of membrane-bound organelles and the lack of oxygen. And so you have this creation of lactate. And lactates, even though it's very resourceful for recycling the NADH back into NAD positive to re-enter the glycolysis, it is highly, highly acidic. So the pH is very low, and this can lead to a lot of physiological problems if not regulated properly. Right? And so the body has utilized this system called the Cori cycle in order to fix this problem. Right? So if, for example, when we talked about the different types of cell types involving in anaerobic respiration, one example would be like a red blood cell. So red blood cell, you remember, does not have any membrane-bound organelles, and so there is an excessive buildup of lactate. And so lactate now here is, so if the cell goes into a normal physiological process of glycolysis, so you have this glucose coming in here, bringing in, breaking down, now you have pyruvate. Pyruvate's presence leads to the actual production of ATP, so you have ATP produced, right? And because of the lack of a mitochondria, the pyruvate gets converted into lactate here with the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase complex, and now you have the actual recycling of the NAD positive, right? So you have NADH that is being reduced, so this pyruvate becomes reduced, having this positive phenomenon, right? So now you have this buildup of lactate, okay? So lactate now needs to be released into the bloodstream and remetabolized or recycled in order to prevent this physiological abnormality of pH, right? And so one organ that's responsible for this is your liver. So your liver is created in order to utilize this lactate and reinsert it back into the body as a normal physiological metabolite, right? So it converts lactate basically back into sugar, right? So you have your red blood cell here, and then if we right in between, we have the blood that's present. So the blood, lactate leaves, goes out of this red blood cell, and it enters the liver, okay? Now it enters the liver. Lactate now gets reconverted back into pyruvate, and pyruvate enters the process of gluconeogenesis. So what's gluconeogenesis? Gluconeogenesis is the process of creation of these sugar molecules. Gluconeogenesis, right? And so now this lactate that gets reconverted back to the pyruvate, all right, becomes glucose. So now we have glucose here. So you have glucose here, you have glucose here, right? So now you have all this glucose that's present, right? And this is a very highly energetically unfavorable situation. So there is a lot of ATP that needs to be required in order to have this process take place. And so now you have glucose in your liver. So this lactate gets converted into glucose, right? And it can either be stored as glycogen, right? Or it can re-enter the bloodstream depending on the level of blood sugar levels, and it can re-enter back and go into the red blood cells, right? So this is a nice little cycle in order to recycle the lactic acid that's built up, all right? And so certain physiological phenomena that can become a problem with this is called lactic acid acidosis. Lactic acidosis, you can call it lactic acidosis, right? And so this is basically a physiological abnormality where you have a low pH due to excessive lactate, right? And these can be due to chronic alcoholism. Patients with chronic alcoholism, they have experienced instances of hypoxia. So they have low oxygen, right? So this everywhere in their body, because of the lack of oxygen, have to go through this this anaerobic respiration to generate high levels of lactate. And then what else can be? Abnormalities with their TCA cycle, their Krebs cycle, or their electron transport chain. All right. What else can be a good example of this? Any kind of respiratory failure can be leading to this. And this can be a very pathological problem, because as soon as the body goes below 7.2, the pH, this is where this abnormality takes place, right? And this can also lead to what? What do you think it would lead to in terms of this NADH-NAD ratios, right? So these ratios of the NADH that we talked about before become excessive, right? So you have this high levels of NADH present, and then now you need to reconvert these NADHs back into normal physiological phenomena, right? So this ratio that is created causes an increase in these ratios. So you have a high abundance of NADH, right, that is being created, right? And this can lead, this phenomena can prevent, because of this high ratio. And if you remember before, we talked about pyruvate being converted into this lactic acid, right, with the help of these molecules. So you have NADH that reduces this pyruvate to NAD positive. If you have high levels of NAD positive, right, you have a constant lactate production, right? So this constant reduction, so this pyruvate itself cannot end up in the Krebs cycle or the electron transport chain. And so this physiological problem is very dangerous and can lead to a lot of other instances of certain organ failures if not treated appropriately.